Adam Parton, joined by my colleague Nigel Morris from MHA. We're going to talk today about the extension to the furlough scheme that was announced in the budget, together with the coronavirus job retention scheme. So I'm going to hand over to Nigel to first run through the major changes.
Thanks, Adam. As was piloted in the press, from the budget, the furlough scheme has been extended now until the end of September 2021. So this phenomenal scheme that's provided the lifeblood for lots of businesses since this time last year is now going to extend through into the summer of 2021, and that's supporting employees by them receiving 80% of their wages, subject to the normal monthly cap of £2,500, with employers being funded that until the end of June, and then employers expected to contribute 10% of hours that the staff don't work in July, increasing to 20% of the hours that staff don't work in August and in September. And that's within the anticipation that as we get through COVID-19 and the vaccinations, and as the economy reopens, then we should be back to fuller employment by the summer. This will be a relief for many employers, particularly those in sectors that can't open as early as others. If they're not able to start to open the doors until late June, and it won't just be a light switch moment for anybody in relation to the recovery in the economy. It could be a bit more of a dimmer switch. So that's been really helpful for those businesses who start a bit later to reopen the doors, and where it will take them a bit more time to get employees back into work as demand levels increase. Unfortunately, there was no mention of the job retention bonus or incentive. Obviously, that was originally shelved back late last year because furlough was extended, and therefore it was felt that it wasn't appropriate to pay the bonus. But there's still no mention of that even beyond the summer this year. So that's a shame. Businesses are still having to support employees with national insurance contributions and pension, and maybe some top-ups of pay, and particularly where they've got depleted income levels in order to support themselves to do that. It's a shame that there isn't that extra bit of support out there, which would have been quite helpful. So those are the main headlines in relation to what's happening with furlough between now and the summer. Adam, anything to add?
Obviously we know the extension is there September. I suppose what we don't know at this stage is really what the autumn and winter holds for us as employers. We unfortunately don't know whether we're going to have further lockdowns. We don't know whether social distancing measures will continue in some format as we head in towards the winter and flu period. This could really affect some employers in terms of what they do long term and medium term for their staff. One thing that I think it's worth pointing out for employers as we head to a period of, again, an unknown period, is please just remember that if you do furlough staff, and unfortunately you do have to make the difficult decision to actually let them go at some point, remember that you won't actually be able to make furlough payments and claims for periods that are of notice. So it's worth employers remembering that as we head into what could be a difficult period later in the year. I think this is a period where employers should be reflecting on the last 12 months. It's a period where obviously you've got to take a proactive stance, both in terms of the commercial side of your business, but also in terms of your internal resource, which is your staff, which for a lot of people, it's a very precious resource. Think about what the staff mean to you, how you can support them, but also how they can support you. Don't think it's going to be a case of just going back to what we did pre-COVID. The workplace will have changed. Staff needs and wants will have changed. I think this is a period where employers are going to have to learn to adapt and evolve very quickly in order to keep, like I say, what is a precious resource to us all. I think that is what we can do medium term. As we head towards longer term, I'm going to ask you, Nigel, what do you think we should do long term in terms of furlough, etc.?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think I think picking up on that point is as you make, Adam. Things won't be the same. I mean, I think we all are resigned to that, and I think businesses, need to sort of think about their planning and to make sure they've got the agility and the flexibility to support their businesses and their employees going forward. So, that includes a reflection on terms and conditions, working practices. The politicians are still out there talking about us being more ready for potentially the next pandemic. Nobody's rushing for that to happen, or wishing for that to take place. But there is a sense that we can reflect on what's happened over the last 12 months. Think about things that could be done better. Things that could make us more prepared, and for us to see what arrangements the government may also come up with to help us through that sort of medium and longer term. I think as you mentioned to me before, Adam, this is great, up to the summer, but actually, things could start to impact again as early as the autumn and the winter, and so that medium to longer term. Perhaps it is a good time for the government to reflect on what other countries do, the US and France and Germany, and think about some kind of permanent, in inverted commas, furlough arrangement at a different level that supports with other downturns that may impact other lockdowns that may come about, let alone other pandemics that may arise in the future, because it is. We've got some line of sight and we've got some level of certainty up to the summer, which is great. But these are still very uncertain, unprecedented times. And so I think that would be good. A good call out to the government would say, let's not rest on our laurels, just as businesses shouldn't rest on their laurels and should reflect and plan, utilise furlough as much as they can, but think about their T's and C's and working practices. But also a call out to the government to say, look, you've done a great job. Thank you very much. But what can we learn from this, and where do we go beyond the autumn of 2021? What do you think, Adam?
I think you're exactly right. It is a period of learning for us all in many aspects of business. I think employers would be daft not to learn from this, and the government certainly daft not to learn from this. We as a society have got to think ahead and pre-plan for what we hope isn't future situations like this, but there could well be.
Yeah, and I think for any and all employers that have utilised furlough, that's great. I would also reflect on it's been a complicated scheme. It's changed a lot. So maybe get reviews done, get some independent reviews done, be ready so that whether your claims have been accurate. And if there are sort of under and over claims, because of course we also know from the budget that HMRC will put in a huge amount of resource financially and in terms of recruiting people to review furlough claims. They do anticipate that there has been a lot of fraud, but actually I haven't seen too much of that from a fraudulent perspective. But lots of errors. It's been it's a scheme that's been put in a very short space of time. A phenomenal job was done in achieving that, but inevitably there have been some sort of growing pains, and people will have made mistakes. So just make sure your house is in order, and that if you have made errors, then seek to change those. Because as I say, the task force to deal with errors and fraud is going to be ramping up pretty soon. There's a lot of money. If we reflect on what Jim O'Hara and the OBR said quite early on, 5 to 10% may have been overclaimed. Well, if this ends up costing £100 billion, then that's 10 billion that they're going to be seeking to recover from somewhere.
Completely agree with that, Nigel. Yeah, it's been a system that could be fraught with potential fraud, but also genuine errors as well. It's been a system that they put in fast and has evolved so much since March last year. and I think it would be wise for employers to actually double check what they have done. It's better to know what you're dealing with rather than the Inland Revenue actually then find it and ask the questions. Better to be prepared in lots of respects.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you.